The priest walks around the altar when he lights the candles at the beginning. So he's making a circle around the altar. And of course, the lighting the candles is very important, both in Freemasonry and in Daoism. It's the first act that you open this circle and you've got the light.
Hello and welcome to Holistic Circle and to our special educational series with Chris Earnshaw, where we are getting 22 lectures about how to basically, it's concept about spiritual Freemasonry, but it's of course for everyone and each of us to step by step learn the path of enlightenment. And I'm very excited to have our second conversation today. And I promised I'll do better, which I have not. So basically, I'll give the mic to you, Chris, and for all of you who may be watching this the first time, this is a series. We had already on my podcast several interviews with Chris. If you would like to know more about his backgrounds, the many books he wrote, please look at some of the other podcasts where I more professionally introduce him. And this is the second video of a 22 video series where you can basically, in your mind, take the step towards a spiritual Freemasonry lodge. But not only that, it is for everyone who wants to grow as a spiritual person. You do not need to be part of the Freemason organization to profit from all of the wisdom that is flowing here. It's for each and every one of us. And with that, Chris, I open the floor.
Thank you very much. So today's theme is circumambulation. As coming from the Latin, it means to walk in a circle. But the important point about circumambulation, it isn't just a walk in the park. It's walking with intention. And when you walk with intention, you create a sacred space in the circle that you are walking around. This also connects to the cyclical nature of the Tao. And so in Daoism, the flow of energy and the direction is very important, and they tie into both yin-yang and I-Ching. Yin-yang, as you remember, is the black and white circle, looks like a dragon chasing its tail. And the I-Ching is made up of 6 bars. One of them is broken, or several of them are broken, and they can be analyzed to read fortunes and other things. Both the yin-yang and I-Ching are moving in a cycle. They're not stationary, and that's important to know, that the yin-yang goes in a... That's why it looks like it's chasing its own tail. So the spiritual principle is that all movement becomes sacred when done with awareness. That is the important point. We want to talk about the flow of energy in circumambulation, and also how to create and enter sacred space. And the 3 skills that you will need are intention, posture, and breath. And also this can also be used as a walking meditation. So you're not just walking around blankly, hoping something will happen, but internally you want to settle yourself as you walk around. So in Freemasonry, the candidate walks around the lodge clockwise 3 times, and each one has a different significance. So it represents the journey through life. And you can see the Masonic ritual as a form of alignment to this energy. One thing important about the circle, though there's only one circumambulation and 2, depending on the degrees, the circle is not a linear progress. It is an eternal return. So each round brings you deeper into the truth. And that is exactly what yin-yang is about. It's not a single a single rotation. You go further and deeper. It's particularly, and I talk about Daoism a lot because that's the theme of all my books, but it teaches that the universe moves in a kind of natural rhythms, and there are circles, there are spirals, there are tides, and also torus is a circle, toroid shapes. The circumambulation mirrors these rhythms and tunes the body and mind to what the Chinese would say, the flow of heaven and earth. So walking with intention becomes a living meditation, harmonizing both the outer world of Freemasonry and your inner world. The other important thing is, besides the walking, is that space can be sacred. And the lodge represents the macrosm, and walking within is a way of tuning to cosmic order. So 3 ideas for exercising or expanding on this subject is, the first is walking the circle, meaning meditation while you walk. Probably not a good idea to write a circle on the floor, but visualize a circle either inside or outside and walk slowly clockwise while breathing deeply. You have to synchronize your breath and the pace you walk at. Make the circle quite wide. I think it should be at least 5-6 meters the diagonal. And every time you step, you can repeat to yourself something like, with each step, I step into the mystery. I walk with awareness, or I return to the center. And so repeat this to yourself as you walk and breathe slowly each cycle, and try and complete at least 3 circles. This is just an aside, but in some of the older rituals that were written in the 18th century, there were hundreds of rituals written, but sometimes candidates were required to circumambulate the lodge 30 times. And in one excessive situation, that if the candidate mistook or say his words correctly, then he was required to walk around 90 times, and then they threw him out of the lodge. Very strange. So it's not the number of circulations or circumambulations, it's the intention. And so you have to be quiet inside, regulate your breathing, and if you want to say something, continue. So when you've finished this, then you open your journal, and this is the second exercise, and the 3 questions you may want to answer. Patterns keep repeating in my life. Secondly, where am I walking unconsciously? And this is, a lot of people do this. They get into a pattern that they just repeat without consciously doing anything. And then thirdly, what new patterns or rhythms do I wish to follow? And then the third step you could do is to have a kind of space inside your house. We talked previously about this, but making a small temple or somewhere that's important to you. Make sure that you're energetically cleaning it now and then. Put a symbol or a candle on that place and acknowledge this space when you come there. And you would say something similar to, in stillness as in motion, I return to the center. So this is a very Chinese idea that there is a spiritual place in the universe for the all trying to return to. And in Chinese, it's called Cheng Dao. Chengdao. Chung Dao means to return to the spiritual place you came from. And this is also a theme in the later part of these 22 exercises. We will talk about it then. That's about it. After the last thing I think to say is that though you're moving in a circle, the path is not forward, but it is inward. And that's what we're trying to achieve. Yes.
Right. May I ask a couple of reflected questions on this so far? So maybe first tell the audience who have not watched the first part that you talk about the journal and how the journal is supposed to be made, and all of this you explain very well in the first part. So I'll be referring a couple more times for people who might jump in the second or third or whatever part they jump in, that in the first part you talk about how a journal should be built and written, the importance of it, so just as a quick reminder. And of course, we will talk about more that you always bring a lecture and you give exercises, but this we'll talk about it in the introduction. My first question is, listening to you, there is in any shamanic tradition or in any other tradition, the sacred of a space. So that's been my first question. I would like to spend a couple of minutes, if you like, to talk about how you make a space sacred. Is it by nature, is there certain energy fields that make a space sacred, or as you say, is it the intent when people come together and make a place special, and this is what happens? So I'm quite curious about it. And if we look at, especially, I had a couple of guests now who are in the best of ideas into witchcraft or into this kind of a magic. They creating those circles, they creating those sacred places in the middle of the forest and things like that. Are there similarities, or is this the place that you build more a place in the mind? So that would be my first question on that subject.
I don't go into detail about energy, but it's all about your energy and your intention that the circle you're walking around is sacred to you. And what is happening, I believe, is that you expand your energy field. And so it's like your aura gets wider and it encompasses this circle. And if you are a medium or medium, or you read tarot cards or other things, you can invite people into that circle that you have created with your aura. So the walking around an invisible circle that you can't see, your intention is recreating the same thing.
Right. And why is it not why is it not any other shape or form? Why is it always a circle? And basically everywhere around the world, it's always a circle. Why a circle?
Yes, so it has no end. Circle, Chinese, in the later lessons we'll talk about this again, but spiritual has no end. And so that is the important thing. So if you, for example, have an out-of-body experience, there is no limit to that experience. You can go back and forward in space and time. There's no limit. So the circle represents that no limit, just goes on and on. But one of the important things is that you're not going around in a circle. You're actually, the first circle and the second circle are not the same. It's like you can't step into the same river twice, because the river flows, etc. This circle, you made the first one. The second is built on the first. So you're actually increasing your energy and as you walk around.
I very much liked the theme, and so many pictures came into mind when you talked about the walking meditation. And we basically have so many examples from the Greek labyrinth, which is, I think, a wonderful story. You can take it literally, or you can really see that there's other dimension with this, until the Catholic monasteries where people are praying and walking in these corridors. It's not a circle, but basically it's in a round motion. And I'm sure you can come up with another 100 examples where these walking meditations are a crucial element of the practice, not to mention, again, also when holy things been brought out of church and then they brought through town, And it's also usually some kind of a circle when they walk around, bring it back into the church, the Virgin Mary, whatever.
In
So
Catholicism, the priest walks around the altar when he lights the candles at the beginning. So he's making a circle around the altar. And of course, the lighting the candles is very important, both in Freemasonry and in Daoism. It's the first act that you open this circle and you got the light. Yes.
So this idea of this walking meditation, what makes it different from a just sitting meditation? Where do you see the significance between this? We also have so many themes about, I don't know, with a walking stick going through the forest. This is the romantic literature, which I'm a big fan of, where you have pages and pages and pages. Some young fellow walking through the forest with his stick, and this is this horrible German literature which I can't stop reading. So give us an idea what's the difference between a sitting meditation and its purpose versus walking meditation.
I think it's more active, of course. It's not a passive thing. Problem about sitting is quite easy to fall asleep and for your mind to wander. But when you're walking, you're actively putting one foot in front of the other, and you're also controlling your breathing in time with the stepping. And so I think that helps you focus. And of course, it's part of the Freemasons' initiation ceremony, 3-degree initiation ceremony. There's circumambulation in all the degrees. And so it ties in that part of spiritual Freemasonry.
Right. Because even if I look at it, shamanism or certain African cultures, where this repeated dancing or these repeated steps brings like a trance like of an element. So yes. I understand that this repetitious movement maybe brings clear awareness, but also a altered state of mind, which in a sense is different from advanced meditation, which definitely builds a different form of connection. So do you see this as a beginner solution or like an easy fix to get something done? Or do you see a higher value in it that is equal to a sitting meditation? Or do you see this as a entrance kind of a concept?
Yeah, I think it's an entrance. So you've probably seen in China that they have a lot of entrances in walls are actually circles in the wall. We don't do this in the West, but so you're actually entering a new position. So the circle you create has a spiritual meaning to you. You repeat certain things as you step forward. And I think that's, rather than meditation, it is more like an altered state of consciousness.
And therefore, I think, as you pointed out, is actually an excellent exercise for anyone who's maybe new into the spiritual world or wants to explore the spiritual world and wants an easy way in. These kind of walking meditation, I think that you pointed out, is a perfect way of getting going into this kind of a world without a massive training or back knowledge. If you put attention, even if it's a walk through the park and there is a circle possibility to walk around the park.
Yes. Like a fountain. A fountain is an ideal. Water is close to the spirit. So to walk around a fountain, if it's a circular fountain, is an excellent way. Yeah.
You gave some good examples specifically from the Freemason territory, but let's make it a bit more hands-on. So if I find my fountain, I find my little park, I go there maybe in the evening when it's basically empty and I can do this in peace, not being disturbed by children running around or whatever, maybe waking up some beggars, but all right, this has to happen. But what thoughts? You gave us already some examples in the first one and now in this episode, but let's talk to people who are maybe not with the Freemasonry and just starting up. What kind of thoughts should you have walking? What ideas could you bring? You talked about intention, you talked about life processes that you've been, but can you give a couple of other ideas what people should be thinking when they walk around this imaginary fountain?
Yes, I think it's important not to try and force anything in spiritual exercises. That what is going to happen will come to you is basically So you want to, just have a look at my notes. Yes, you want to, I think the intention is very important. You don't want to try to experience an altered state of consciousness. That is the byproduct of being quiet and walking in a circle. And secondly, the other point about children, I don't think it's important. If you are focused, if there are children running around and there's somebody selling hot dogs, you should be able to still focus on that circle and ignore everything else. And this is a very important technique to learn, because you can't choose the place and time to do a spiritual exercise all the time. Sometimes you can do it at home if you want to do it outside, which is also very good. I found that most of my spiritual insights come to me when I'm just being quiet and focusing on something.
So if I may interpret what you've said to translate this, and please stop me if I'm saying nonsense. So one way you would suggest to just come with a clear mind and just start walking and see what bounces back, to just not force anything, to just let it flow. If you maybe don't know your intention, maybe you don't even know at this specific juncture why you're actually here and why you're doing it. You feel like exhausted or whatever, or stressed, or you want some spiritual uplift. So you start walking and see what bounces back. That's one thing. And the other thing would be to basically have a purpose, like what's missing, or like you can focus, so to say, the meditation walk on a certain theme of your life. And then again, start with the intention of focusing on the theme and then walk and then see what bounces back. Is that something that you would be suggesting?
Similar. I think meditation, I'm more into a kind of active meditation. A lot of people believe that meditation, you have to clear your mind and not think of anything. You have to be blank and hold that for a long time, which is difficult when you have thoughts that come into your head or there are children in the park. So for my case, I just focus on my breathing, so I can hear myself breathing and I'm stepping at the same pace, very concentrated, which is important, concentration. And then on top of this, you can say, I'm stepping into the mystery, or I walk with awareness, this sort of thing. And what you're doing is you are training your subconscious to accept that. So the subconscious becomes more in tune with a spiritual Freemasonry lesson, rather than just being quiet and trying to avoid thinking of things.
We're already reaching about the half an hour mark that we set ourselves for the lectures, but you just opened a very interesting conversation right here at the end, because I think a lot of people are not aware that it is basically like a muscle and there's like a training with it. These kind of qualities are trained like anything else. And yes, as you said, the mind need to learn to open these channels or accept these possibilities. And more often you train it, the more stronger the connection gets. And most likely there will be more about this in the coming chapters. I have a sneaky feeling that you will be talking more about that.
So it doesn't work for a lot of people because they believe they are not worthy of receiving things. So that's when you have that sort of mindset, you have to teach your subconscious that you are worthy of receiving manifestations and manna from the heavens or whatever it's going to be. So in the beginning, we are training our subconscious that this is a spiritual path. I'm not just walking around a fountain because I've got nothing to do. I'm making myself aware that I'm on a spiritual journey. Freemasonry is a spiritual exercise. This is one of the exercises, and I want my subconscious to support me in this journey.
Well, this was again, very condensed, interesting second lesson. There are practical exercises for you. Please follow the first step. Please follow the second step. Try to stay with us. And my interpretation, I think, got a 2 out of 5, which is spectacular coming from Chris. I'm noting myself. Thank you so very much and see you in 2 weeks' time. Thank you.
You're welcome. Goodbye.